work's divided into two kind of distinct patterns. There's solitary internal shots, which are predominantly nude or partially nude, and introspective in their nature. And then there's the other element, which is the external stuff out on the streets, what we take out and display to the world. That even seemingly the most durable of personalities, or the most outgoing or extroverted or robust people, can often end up in reality being quite emotionally shut down, upset, isolated, and a sort of silent, durable bravery, which is an admirable quality and goes really uncelebrated quite a lot. The solo paintings, the nudes, the internal shots are usually very sparse. There's deliberately nothing in the paintings to cause distraction or to cause an additional dialogue. To have people that specifically were not models, that were uncomfortable in front of a camera, and to have those people naked, to take their clothes off them, created a great sense of agitation and discomfort with a lot of them, and made them very self-conscious, and understandably so. Doing that to those people caused them to transmit the kind of internal discord that I wanted to visually represent. So yeah, real people tend to give real reactions, and that makes for much better images. A lot of the external paintings have not been so deliberate in their design. A lot of the ideas have been very strange. There's been a notion that's occurred to me. For instance, there's a painting called Silent Guidance, which is of a young father and son walking along next to a motorway wall just a few hundred yards from him. And it occurred to me as an idea several years ago, and I couldn't quite understand why the significance of this very impressive looking motorway wall and not particularly attractive road. I couldn't really work out why this image kept recurring to me as an idea that I should pursue. There's a lot in the picture that I can't quite define, but there's something in it which is undeniably significant, and I think that makes it relevant. The image that I'm doing now started off as an idea that I didn't really understand. There's nothing of any particular significance on the road, but it bothered me to the extent that eventually I just said, right, hell with it, and went ahead and took some photographs and constructed the painting. But as it moves on and as I keep working on it, it seems to have more legitimacy. I've always felt decidedly separated from any artistic community. I never went to art school, I never went to college, I never went to anything. It's been an entirely isolated process. The way that I work is very unconventional. For instance, something that I do that I believe that a lot of people don't is, before I start work, when I've established a drawing on a canvas, I will then make every single colour that I'm going to use for the entire painting, and sometimes it's hundreds. There's one painting that was approaching 360 colours that I made, which was many weeks of just making colours very slowly, meticulously, wrapping each one up in foil, putting all of them in different categories, in different jars, so I can lay them all out in next to no time in the morning, and then have the entire day, have every colour that I'm going to need available to me. I still mess around and make one or two colours here and there as I go, but I waste very little time. When I started painting, it was largely by happy accident. At the time I was living in a burnt out van in Los Angeles. I was 17, I was doing nothing really with my life. I'd just literally run away to Los Angeles. And one day I was sitting in a coffee shop, I was doodling on a piece of paper, and a long-haired giant of him looked at what I was doing and then looked at me and said, "Are you going to be here for a while?" So I said, "Yeah, probably." And he left. Anyway, half an hour later or so he came back with a wooden box, which is here. It was a box of a starter pack of oil paints, a few basic colours and a wooden palette, one thing or another. And he said, "This has been in my closet for the last 3 years and I've never used it. maybe you can get some use out of it. So I just said thanks. I bought a couple of cheap $6 canvases and spent my days sat in my burned out van painting these pictures, which were utterly dreadful. The original motivation was, I suppose, to acquire recognition and probably ego-driven things. But as time went on, the work became more sincere, and I wanted to get to a point where I would be able to produce something that anybody in the world would stand in front of and would not be able to dispute. That they would have to accept that it was legitimately good. That I could produce work that was genuinely, undeniably good. And that became a constant motivator, because I believed that I had the capability to do that, and I thought that that would be a worthwhile pursuit with my life.